When you are prioritizing what's important to you and not just the mom hat, like obviously our family and our kids are important to us, but this thing that's our own, this different purpose and fulfillment, we start to show up as the best version of ourselves. We gain more patience for our kiddos in those difficult moments. We gain more energy and excitement. We're talking about not just everything that we hate about our job at the dinner table and before bed with our partners. We're talking about this exciting new thing that we're doing, this new value that we're bringing into the world, this thing that's making us feel alive. And when we as moms feel more alive and feel more in control of our purpose and this new identity, again, we're a whole new version of ourselves, and it's a better version of ourselves.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. This episode is for those of you who have been just feeling that nudge to start your own business, to quit your corporate job because you know that you want more for yourself, whether it's better mental health, for your well-being, or to fulfill a purpose. I have business and mindset coach for mom entrepreneurs, Jenna Rykiel, and I'm so excited to have her here. I've been on her podcast, and you're in for a treat, okay? Because we're going to dive into how you can start a business when you're miserable at work. We're going to talk about obstacles that are going to come up as you do that. We're going to talk about family life. We're going to talk about balance and marriage and all that stuff that comes with starting your own business. And so before we get into that conversation, Jenna, can you please introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, what you do, where you live, how old your kids are, all the good stuff that makes you you.
Yes, thank you. And I am so excited for this conversation. I loved our conversation on my podcast, and there's just so much room for more goodness of it. So, my name is Jenna Rykiel, and I'm a business and mindset coach. I am the mom of 2 little boys. One is a 2-year-old and some change, and the other is 6 months. And I live in Columbia, Maryland. And really, my job is all about helping moms quit their job. So I work mostly with moms who are in corporate. And listen, corporate was not designed for moms. We all know that. And for a lot of people, they're making it work. And some moms I talk to absolutely love their jobs and they love their roles. And thankfully, their corporations are flexible with them, right? But the majority of jobs out there and corporations are not designed for moms. So I help moms leave their jobs and start their own business so that they can continue to have, the career mom hat on and continue to contribute financially to their family, but doing it in a way that feels more aligned and also allows them to show up, be the mom they want to be, and also to do something that's fulfilling and flexible.
Yeah, I mean, you just described why I left my corporate job.
Yeah,
So I've been
totally.
doing this marriage coach thing for like almost 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason was that, I had a stepson already. I was giving birth to my son, my first bio son, who's now almost 9, which is like so wild. And I remember thinking like, I don't want to be that version of myself that's like so angry all the time because I'm overstimulated and I'm burnt out. I didn't know that at the time, right? I didn't know that that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my employer, I was like, can I work reduced hours or can I work from home? And they're like, sorry, we're not set up for that. And I just knew immediately, okay, it's time to go. And
Mm-hmm.
so talked to my husband. I was like, I don't care if we need to drain my 401k. Like, I'm not going back. That's not the life
Yeah.
I want. And so I started my business like shortly after, maybe like a year and a half later. And I will say I've noticed since COVID, so since 2020, there's been a lot more women choosing to leave the workforce and starting their own businesses, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And I just love that there's more of an emphasis on alignment lately. Like, if we look back to previous generations, they would have never done that kind of stuff, right? It was more like, let's follow the script of how life works, right? You go to school, you get a job, you stay at that job for like, I don't know, 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a pension, which isn't even a thing anymore in most places.
Yeah.
And now we're of this generation where it's like, okay, we're going to follow the script, but there's an interruption. There's like, wait a minute, we can do things differently.
Yeah, we have
Our
options.
well-being matters. Yeah, we have options.
Yeah.
And I love that there's more conversation around toxic workplaces and how
Yeah.
people are choosing to really be selective about where they work rather than,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they're interviewing me, but rather, oh, I'm also interviewing them. And also, I can choose to start my own business. And there's so many more resources that support small businesses now, like
Yeah.
yourself, right? And I just think this is such a necessary conversation because, like you said, the workplace is not set up for moms, like
Yeah.
whatsoever. Like the US in general, like the leave policy, what a joke.
I know, I know. Well, here's the thing about COVID. A couple of things happened during COVID. I think, well, number one, we were all in a moment in history that was scary and where
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of time to think and a lot of time to reflect on, are we living our life the way we want to be living it, right? We were all forced to slow down. The other thing that was happening is that we were always a virtual world. We were always a connected, internet based world. But during COVID, when every company had to go virtual and had to work, everybody had to work from home, we got this little taste of like, oh, so we can do
Mm-hmm.
this. My company can do this. So now they're just not allowing it, right? So a
Yep.
lot of people came back and they were frustrated because when we were working from home, we were so much more aligned. I feel like, I mean, it was tough, right? But we were so much more aligned with our family. We didn't have the commute. We were there. We were, present. Yes, we were probably distracted while we were working, but we got used to this way of being virtual and being there for the moments, more of the moments with our family, right? So we got a taste of that where we wanted more of that. And we wanted to, be able to build something where we didn't have a commute, where we had more flexibility, right? And then, I mean, the other thing that was happening is other moms and other people were starting businesses, right? And I think there's so much value in seeing those things happening because then it's like, well, why not me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like before COVID, there definitely was during COVID this boom of people, especially moms who were starting businesses and still are. And you look at it and you're like, oh, I kind of want a piece of that. If that person can do it, maybe I can do it too. So we see ourselves in other people, and that's the beauty of what I do too. Is I see moms starting businesses every day, and I see them go from not seeing themselves as an entrepreneur and thinking this is crazy, but I have this vision of what I want my life to look like and what I want my family dynamic to look like and what I want my flexibility to look like. So I'm going to give it a go. And then in, a few weeks, even, maybe couple months at most, this person is completely, a new version of themselves, a better version of themselves, more confident, more resourceful, seeing the possibility and seeing themselves differently and stepping into that entrepreneurial role. And it really is a wonderful thing to be able to witness, because I always talk to them about, like, I did it, you did it, we're not special, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can do it. And there really are, ways to do it where you can be successful, where you are able to get out of your own way. But there's so much motivation and inspiration in seeing other people do that. And I think so much of what happened in COVID was this, this motivation from seeing role models and other people doing it and thinking, why not me?
Yeah, no, definitely. I for sure thought like this is a crazy idea, but also
Hmm.
what's the alternative? Like the alternative
Absolutely.
is I have to go back to work because at the time I was living in California, which is like, everybody knows it's really expensive there. And
Hmm.
I was like, that's not an option to me because I am not going back to that version of myself. Right. I was already
Yeah.
stressed out working with one child. And then it's like, now I have two. There's no way that I'm going to go back to that where my life consists of waking up and then getting the kids ready and, doing my job and then coming back and then, getting the kids ready again for bed. And it's like, you're just getting the worst parts of me every single
Yeah.
day. And I was not okay with that. And plus I was fighting with my husband more and I was like, this is not what's happening. This is not my life. I don't choose for it to be my life. And honestly, for a long time, like I kind of felt selfish about it, you know?
Mm.
Like, oh, my husband has to still like go do the whole clock in, clock out thing, and I have so much more flexibility. But at the same time, because I have the flexibility, our family life is better. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'm so glad that I had the courage to do that. And I'm so glad that my husband and I figured stuff out to make
Hmm.
it work. And there are some challenges that come up with it, like with any situation, right? Whether you go work for
Yeah.
someone else and you're out of the house and you're doing the whole commute thing and you're dealing with the stress and the burnout, or you try something new. So, can you share what obstacles you experienced as you navigated transitioning from corporate life to working for yourself and starting your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really think about these obstacles. I think of five major obstacles that moms will face. The first, I alluded to it earlier. The first is this lack of seeing yourself as somebody who's capable of doing this, right? Seeing yourself as somebody who's capable of figuring it out, because it's all figure outable, right? Every problem that you encounter, like one of the simple ones, or not simple, but that we can all think of is like, oh, what do I name my business, right? It's like there's constantly these questions that are problems that you have to figure out, right? And the problems don't go away. They just look different, right? So, when you're first starting, it's sort of like, how do I tell my boss that I am going to leave? How do I tell and communicate with my husband these plans, right? There's these problems. And then eventually you get to a place in your business where you have problems of scaling, and you have problems of, how do I set up this email sequence, right? And how do I run ads, or, whatever the business is. But there's this necessary skill of being able to see yourself as capable. So, obstacle number one is us getting in our own way, right? And having a process to be able to check ourselves and be able to get through the guilt, right? Being able to understand what's happening in between our ears, and being able to take action even when we're feeling scared, even when we know we could be embarrassed if, no one shows up, right? The second thing is time, right? There's so like time is our most treasured non-renewable resource, right? And moms are so strapped for time because we are doing so much, we're wearing so many hats, taking care of so many people. And so time is that next thing that tends to be an obstacle because most of my clients are working full time. They're moms. They might even be caretakers. And then they want to start this business, right? And I always say, truly, if you're doing all the things, I just want 2 hours a week that you are able to turn off all the other hats and focus on your business and be able to think about what results you want to create in those 2 hours, right? And in 1 year, that's over 100 hours, which is crazy to think about, right? Like as business owners, you and I, it's like if I had 100 focused hours on my business, it's in a completely different place, after 100 hours. It's functioning, right? I'm able to quit my job after 100 hours in the business. And so having a commitment to this piece of, okay, this is my time. This is where I'm going to focus on my thing that excites me. And we often think that our plate can only be so full. We can't add something else to our plate. Truly, when we start focusing on something that gives us energy and that excites us, our plate expands and our plate gets bigger. And it's amazing how this happens. I've seen it hundreds of times with people, right? It's not just adding something to your to-do list or adding something to your plate. It's literally growing your plate and growing your energy. And we've talked about it before. This is one of the reasons that I think moms considering and going after these dreams and this vision for their life is so important for a marriage, because when you are prioritizing what's important to you and not just the mom hat, like obviously our family and our kids are important to us, but this thing that's our own, this different purpose and fulfillment, we start to show up as the best version of ourselves. We gain more patience for our kiddos in those difficult moments. We gain more energy and excitement. We're talking about not just everything that we hate about our job at the dinner table and before bed with our partners. We're talking about this exciting new thing that we're doing, right? This new value that we're bringing into the world, this thing that's making us feel alive. And when we as moms feel more alive and feel more in control of our purpose and this new identity, again, we're a whole new version of ourselves and it's a better version of ourselves. So there's that commitment to time. That's another obstacle that has to be overcome. The third thing is setting a plan, like being able to plan. And then number 4 is taking action, right? Like that's one of the bigger things too. When I talk to moms, it's like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do first. I don't know what to do next. And it's being able to, again, figure it out, because there's, I think 4.7 million businesses are owned by moms. I talk about that stat all the time because
Wow.
it blows my mind. Yeah. And I say, like, why not you? Right? Again, we're not special, the ones who have figured it out. So it is taking action in a meaningful way, continuing to move, and then build momentum in your business, and then being able to create a plan. But the plan, you have to know what success looks like. You have to know what the vision is. You have to know where you're going, just like putting an address in the GPS, right? So the other obstacles are about how to keep moving forward when your brain is telling you, I don't know what to do. The next piece, the fifth obstacle, is support. And that can show up, whether it's your partner, being risk averse, or your partner not really, being all in and supportive, being scared, right? Or whether it is just not having accountability. We think that as moms, we have to figure it out by ourselves. We have to do these things. And if we ask for help, or like that, we shouldn't ask for help, right? It's wrong to ask for help. But in building a business with all of these people coming before us and all these people being so many steps ahead of us, that's a beautiful thing. That's something to celebrate, because we can ask, right? We can say, how did you do this? We can say, can you hold me accountable to this? And so the other obstacle is not having the support systems in place. And believe it or not, whether that's a conversation with our partner, communicating with our partner, all the reasons that it makes sense to support this venture, or simply getting an accountability partner, joining a mastermind, hiring a mentor or coach, right? There's so many ways that we can create that support. It doesn't have to be something that just pops up. We can create it. We don't have to manifest it, right? We can just create it. There are so many ways. So those are the main obstacles that I see, right? So much of it is in our head. And then so much of it is just not having the systems in place to keep us going when things get hard, because they will, as you know. Entrepreneurship is amazing, and it is so hard at times. But just like parenting is hard at times, it's worth it, and it's so fulfilling once you get to the other side of those difficult stages.
Yeah. And, if you're listening to what Jenna's sharing, you're like, there's no way in hell I see myself doing that. If that's like a really nice dream to have, but I don't see myself actually doing it. I want you to remember that just by being a mom, you already have the tools to do this. Okay?
Absolutely.
Like, we are so good at thinking on our feet, selling to our kids, because there's some big negotiators, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are resourceful. We have community with our mom friends. So you are already doing the things that you need to leverage, and remember that you are doing these things to build a business. So if you have a calling in your heart for more, whether it's living a more aligned life so that you feel full, or you feel like you have a purpose to go do something. Like, I genuinely feel like I have a purpose to help people have happier marriages. I feel like I have a purpose to help them learn how to fight the right way so that fighting is not a problem in your marriage. Okay? I want you to lean into that and say, why not me? Like, you have one life, okay? You are not a cat. You don't have 9 lives that you get to just like mess around with and be like, okay, well, next lifetime, I'm going to do whatever, right? So why not now? Like, the worst thing you can do in life, and all the old people will tell you this, is to live a life full of regrets by not pursuing your dreams, whether it's learning how to skateboard or building a business. It doesn't matter. If you have a desire in your heart, it is your responsibility to yourself and to your kids and even to your spouse to pursue it, because that's how you're going to be the fullest version of yourself. And I will say that starting a business, as with marriage and becoming a mom, is like that personal development journey that you didn't know you were going on.
Absolutely.
Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Oh my gosh, it's personal development in disguise. You learn
Right?
so much about yourself. You push yourself in ways that you just never thought possible. Like, I'm sure you can agree, like you and I are probably doing things today that we never thought were possible. And not necessarily this big picture of owning a business and making money. It's like the little things of like sending out a mass email to our listserv with a video or with a picture, or how we introduce ourselves,
Yeah.
or
Or
creating
speaking
the
in front of
things that we
hundreds of
create.
people. Like, I would
Yes.
have never thought that I would do that. And I was like shaking in my shoes as I was walking up the stage, but I did it. And I was like, wow, I did that. That's wild.
Yeah. I actually just listened to that episode of yours, I think.
Did you?
Yeah,
That
because
was
it
a
was a
long time ago.
conference. Yeah, it was a conference.
Yeah.
And it was a great job you did. Um,
Thank you.
here's the thing though too. Our brains, when we're thinking about this, so there's this itch, right? That we know we're not fulfilling. We know we could be doing something more. Like our corporate job or any job feels like it's not utilizing us to our greatest potential, right? And what I see often right now, and it sounds like this is part of your story too, is like okay, well, I need to burn it down. Well, not like burn it down
Mm-hmm.
totally, but that is a lot of people's story where
Mm-hmm.
they're just like, okay, I am tired. I'm quitting. We're dipping into the 401k. We're doing whatever we can. I cannot go back to work. And they burn it, right? And I always say, like, let's not do that. Let's create a plan. Let's create an exit plan. One of my favorite episodes of my podcast is how to make work suck less, right?
Mm.
So there is this time period where you're at your job and you have a bigger vision for yourself, but you are using your job as an ATM to fund your dreams and to keep
Yep.
everything intact, right? You don't want to burn it all down yet. And so, how do we make work suck less while we are there and while we then build this runway,
Yes. Use it
right?
like a stepping stone.
Exactly, exactly. And so that when we have a plan, yes, there's still going to be fear and there's still going to be uncertainty and there's still going to be all of those yucky emotions that we have to navigate. But at the same time, when you have a plan, there's so much more confidence, there's so much more of a vision. And, when we're talking about the communication with your partner and getting your partner on board, they can be more on board too because then they see the plan, right? When you do burn it all down, it's great. You need support if you're going to do that in one way or another. But at the same time, when you have a really solid plan, this runway of what you're going to put away financially for the startup costs, what networking events you're going to go to, what sort of, whether it be credentials that you're going to gain in the meantime, right? It's like when you have a plan, it doesn't seem like the actions are, it doesn't seem like you're running from something. It's like you're running to something, which I
Mm-hmm.
always like that shift because when we're running to something, we're in control. When we're running away from something, we're almost like a loose cannon, right? We're just like, I need to
Mm-hmm.
get away. And we're so reactive. And then we take actions that maybe aren't in the long run best for business building, best for our wellness, right? Now, of course, well, we know you brought up wellness before. If if you're in a toxic work environment, yes, prioritize leaving, prioritize getting yourself out of that situation. But at the same time, there's always room to plan for what's next and to be thinking about this bigger vision that you have for your life and for the way that you want to add value to the world. Um, and I would say too, for anybody listening who, needs a little bit more of the not hand holding, but like wants to know like what goes into that type of plan, like what things to be thinking about. My podcast, I talk about all the things, mindset shifts, business tips, even an episode on like figuring out is like, are you ready to quit your job? Because sometimes it's just a difficult moment at our jobs. It's not necessarily that, we need to adopt such a drastic career pivot, right? So, all of that, the podcast in general is to be thinking about this in a very intentional way, so that it's not a reaction as much as a thought out plan and something that you're running towards and excited about.
Yeah, and I feel like had my, I guess, like trigger to making that decision not been the birth of my child and like figuring out am I going back to work or not, I think having a plan also gives you hope, which helps you endure a lot at work
Mm-hmm.
because you know that it's not forever. You know that something is waiting for you. You have a light at the end of the tunnel. And
Absolutely.
what's amazing about doing what lights you up, fulfills you, however you want to say it improves all areas of your life, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it helps you feel more confident. I definitely feel more confident of a person than before I started my business because you're put into a lot of positions, or not put, you have a lot more opportunity to stretch yourself and you are surrounded, if you choose to seek it out, there's like a huge online community for female entrepreneurs, specifically mom entrepreneurs, that are ready to help you. Like Jenna and I are both mom entrepreneurs, and both of our podcasts, like we love to feature other moms. So there's just so much support out there, ready and willing and able to be your friend and help you get through the tough times and show you what they've done, and you can learn from them. And you get to be this like new and improved version of yourself to your kids and to your spouse. And I will say that when we feel more full, our marriage, even if you change nothing, feels better. Now, obviously, if it doesn't feel so great right now, still do the work. But the reason for that is that when we focus on taking care of ourselves, between self care, making more aligned decisions for ourselves, really feeding our interests and hobbies and passions, that puts less focus and pressure on our marriages. Because I know that when we're unhappy and we're in fix it mode, we can get tunnel vision, and everything that isn't going right feels a lot more painful than if we were full in other areas of our life. It would be like, yeah, okay, we're working on that. Like we have a more hopeful outlook and positive growth mindset type of perspective rather than, oh my gosh, the world is burning down. We had a fight last night. But instead, it's like, okay, we got to work on our communication. Like you're in problem solving mode rather than I'm going to sit in this muck and just wallow in it.
Yeah, such a perfect example of that. And I'm not embarrassed anymore to talk about this, but my husband's an entrepreneur as well, right? And for over a decade, I worked in corporate. He's always been an entrepreneur. Part of the reason that I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur is because him and I are two vastly different people. He is textbook entrepreneur, right? With the ideas, he's not risk averse. It's a beautiful thing. Me, I'm the opposite, right? So I was like, well, he's the entrepreneur. And for over a decade working in corporate, I would come home after my corporate day and we would talk about our days. And his would go something like, well, he did such and such. And then he went to the botanical gardens in Denver and read a book. And then he was on his bike for a little bit. And I would come home and be such a terrible person. And not a terrible person, right? It was like I had so much resentment. Luckily, him and I were able to communicate even when those moments were happening. And we had an agreement that we would go for a walk around the park when I got home. And he wasn't allowed to talk to me until I initiated conversation. And it would happen sometime on that walk that, that was our system because I would be so filled with resentment getting home from such a difficult day where I'm talking to everybody, I'm managing people, I'm dealing with all of these problems and these clients that not the clients I would choose to work with, right? And then I would get home and, it would almost feel like a slap in the face that his day was so like he just owned his time and he could decide how he spent his time. And so we had that buffer where we'd go for a walk. I'd release the tension and then finally be able to communicate and have a normal conversation with my husband. And what I think is important about that is then when I started my business, when I started owning my own time, I didn't have that resentment anymore. And again, it made me such a better partner because it wasn't so much of like me focusing on what I didn't have. And here's the thing, like his job being flexible benefited me. It benefited our family, right? It was better for me that he was flexible and able to read a book in the middle of the day or whatever. But for me, it was like, I just felt so trapped, right? And another way this shows up too, like maybe not if your partner's not entrepreneurial or doesn't have their own job, but sometimes our partners have interests and they have hobbies and we don't as moms. I hear it all the time where I hear clients saying like, I just want something that's mine, right? So we have these partners who maybe they like cycling and they go out and they do this like 1 or 2 hour bike ride and that's their thing. And we are home watching the kids. And then we're just like, well, what's my thing? What's the thing that I can do? And some resentment builds up because we don't have that thing. And so when we're talking about this, like starting a business and being able to focus, it's like, okay, that 2 hours a week that I'm asking people to find and to create, like maybe the partners take the kids or maybe the in-laws take the kids. It's like we sit down with our business and with our ideas, and that's ours. And then that resentment goes away because resentment is jealousy, right?
Jealousy
It's
with anger.
envy.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We start to be less jealous because we have our thing. We have that thing. Start cycling or do whatever hobbies outside of business. But business is a really good place to find something of your own. And everybody I talk to has a zone of genius, has something of value that they can bring. And then it's just figuring out who will pay for this? How do I monetize it? And what do I need to do to make it ready for somebody to buy, whether it's a service or a product? But ultimately, those are very specific examples of how we change when we start focusing on ourselves and our own thing, and how resentment and some of these really, really toxic emotions in a partnership can start to disintegrate when we shift things and when we shift our mindset to looking at what we're doing and adopting something that feels just so good to us and gives us energy. It's our thing, right? And then we don't have to think about so much how we are sacrificing so much as moms. We start to see it as like, yeah, we're moms, but we're also all these other things.
So many other things. And I think that it would be a disservice to the listeners if we didn't tackle the topic of, okay, well, my husband isn't an entrepreneur and he works 9 to 5. And how do I even approach him about this topic if all he's used to is consistent salary, benefits? How do we talk about that when it means that it could mean dipping into our savings because there is a startup cost to it, no matter how you slice it, because you've got systems that you're going to want to start. Maybe you're going to want to get certifications or coaching to have that mentorship and support. That could be a tricky conversation if you yourself do not have that money set aside to invest into it. And so then that guilt comes in, right? Well, I'm taking away from the family, or I'm delaying our retirement potentially, and all without the promise of what this is going to end up looking like. We have no idea. There is no paycheck that's like consistent, right? Like that's just the nature of it, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And so we need to talk about that. We need to talk about how this affects partnership and our family and how we can ease that and hopefully enlist their support, because it is a big conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think too, so we've talked about this before, and you are the communication guru side of this. But one thing, when we're talking about finances and when we're talking about the stable 9 to 5, we need to also talk about really being aware of the financial scenario, because there are the numbers and then there are our thoughts about the numbers, right? So yes, every situation is different. The numbers are different for everyone. The timeline's different for everyone. But what I find happens so often is our brain goes into fear and freak out mode, and we're not going to be able to support our family. It's like the what if worst case scenario, right? And there's not a lot of time that's taken to really sit down with the numbers and to look at, okay, how much, are we bringing in the pennies and dimes, right? And how much are our expenses? And what does it look like what if we take away this one income of the family? What if we reduce this one income? And to look at different scenarios, but to remember that the number itself is not the problem. It's not the scary thing. It's our thoughts about it. And so much fear and uncertainty can come up just from how we're thinking about the number. I will be honest, so many moms that I work with, when they actually sit down with their partners and talk through the actual numbers, I always say, like, maybe even ask the question of how long could we sustain if this business didn't work? My partner and I did, right? We sat down. I certainly like built a runway and had a lot of time that I spent in corporate where I was planning my exit financially. But we had a conversation of, okay, your business could not bring in any income for a year and we would be okay. And we set it up like that because it was important to me to not feel so pressured in my business that I had to sign clients in order for us to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And there's ways you can go about building that. But ultimately, there needs to be this awareness and this conversation around what are the facts of our financial situation. And yes, it could be better or worse than what you come up with, these facts, but always remembering that your brain and the thoughts about that number is going to play a huge role. The next thing then is, like we talked about before, having a plan and really being able to communicate that plan so that it's not that you are making a rash decision and you are being so reactive. It's like your partner can see the vision and they can see the runway, and you are making sure that you're putting time and thought and intention into how to build this thing and how to invest in yourself in ways that will pay you back. The other important thing to remember, and we often don't think about this as new entrepreneurs, but there's always going to be a ceiling in corporate, a limit on how much you can make, right? And when you own your own business and when you are creatively coming up with ways to make money, the possibilities are endless, right? And it's important to surround yourself with other successful business owners because again, you can see what's possible in their business success and then think, why not me? But ultimately, there's a lot of what if everything goes wrong. And I always like to make sure my clients are saying, what if everything goes right? Okay. Because if everything goes right, like if you just allow yourself to go there, it is an amazing, beautiful world, right? Like, what if you're making more than you made in corporate? What if you have more time and flexibility to be with your family, be with your kids? What if you're doing something that gives you energy? And yeah, we're talking about retirement, but I don't know that I would take a retirement with what I'm doing now, right? It's just so fulfilling. It's something I can do in my old age, right? And that's possible for people to do something that they don't feel like they're eager for retirement, right? They're like, I can't wait until I'm done with this. It's like, no, like there is maybe something out there that you would want to do into your old age, right? Because you love it so much. And so often we don't go there. We don't tell ourselves, what if everything works out? I think we imagine that we'll be hurt if it doesn't happen. And that's just managing our mind, right? We need to be able to go there. We need to be able to get energy from that future self and to then give us courage to take actions, because the what if everything goes wrong, it's not that bad, right? We just go back to corporate. Like, we all have worked in corporate. We all know the deal. We know how to put together a resume. We know how to interview. Worst case scenario, we just go back to what we're doing, right? Best case scenario, like the possibilities are endless and it's a beautiful world. So when we're thinking about getting our partner's support, we do need to have a very clear picture of exactly where we are. We need to have a plan, and that plan takes finances into consideration. That plan takes minimizing risk into consideration. That plan maybe means that you're staying at your job for a certain amount of time while you build out the foundation. And then it also means like bringing them along on this vision of, yes, for a little while, the business probably won't make as much money, but long term, potentially this business could finance us. Like, you could quit your job. I know that's mine and my husband's goal, right? It's like, I want him to quit his job. I mean, he loves his job, right? But I want him to have the time and space to be able to say, like, okay, well, now I want to go do something different and I want to build a new business. And my business will be able to support both of us down the line. And that's a vision that we have for our family, for us to both even take a mini retirement and be able to take a year off and do things with our kids, right? It's exciting and fun to talk about that and to bring your partner into that and get them excited, just like you're excited. That's how they start to get on your team. And then, of course, like you always talk about treating them like an investor,
Mm-hmm.
as being one of the most important things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to be mindful of your time. So if you are wanting to
Mm-hmm.
learn more about the communication piece, hop on over to Jenna's podcast because I
Mm-hmm.
talked all about that, about how you can build a business without breaking your marriage so that it doesn't seem like you have to choose between yourself and your future and your passions and your marriage. Like you get to do it in a way where he's going along with you and you're deciding together as partners and you're not feeling that disconnect because you're not on the same page. There are ways for you to talk things through and figure out, okay, what are we willing to risk? What are we not willing to risk? What's our tolerance level here? And make decisions as a united front. And you're talking about how when you start a business, there's a lot more flexibility, right? And the biggest takeaway from me looking back is that I wasn't taking advantage of the benefits that I got as soon as I decided that I was going to work for myself. I felt like I needed to work, work, work. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
when I hit this milestone, and those who are in the online coaching world, like the whole like 6 figures is like a big thing. I thought that once I hit that, only then could I reap the benefits. And now looking back, I'm like, if I could do it all over again, I would recognize that I get to say when I work. So if
Yeah.
someone has a field trip, I'm going. Like I am
Mm-hmm.
chaperoning. I get to decide that I'm going to go pick up my kids from school. I get to decide what extracurriculars they're in because I have that flexibility. I get to decide how many hours I want to work and look at the business as a way to support my life, not as it being my life. As much as I love supporting my clients, my family's the priority. And that's
Yeah.
what gets to happen when you work for yourself. And I just think it's an incredible thing as a mom. Like it truly is so supportive of motherhood
Mm-hmm.
and family
Yeah.
life and marriage and all of the
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah. I mean, for better or worse, you're never going to be there, right?
No,
And I'm sure you
never.
experience that, right? It's like, I have this goal, and, once I get there, I'll be able to relax. Once I do that, I'll be able to spend more time with my family, right? We say that. And then when we get there, there's not this like beautiful celebration that happens where we just
Like a
breathe
finish
and then
line
we
that you're
just like,
crossing.
yes, and then we just go and sit on some Adirondack chairs in front of the lake and drink a Mai Tai or whatever. That doesn't happen. It's like we get there, we feel content and satisfied for like not even a day. And then we are, well, I need to do this, right? And it's not a terrible thing, right? It's a beautiful thing because we keep striving, we're ambitious, and that means putting more value in the world, right? The more clients we work with, the more lives we change. It's a beautiful thing. But when I talk with clients about time management, right, it's not just about making time for the business. It's like, well, we can't be telling ourselves constantly that once we are no longer in this job, we will then do X, right? So much of the time management strategies that I work with moms on, and I call it living a conscious and deliberate life now, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do we build in the business? Yes, 2 hours a week, but also how do we start doing these things with our family? The things that we think we will do once we are entrepreneurs, how do we start doing those things now? Because it's
No.
possible to do that now so that we don't get to a certain stage where our kids are older and we never took them to the Sesame Street, whatever thing. And it's like, we can build that in now. We just have to be intentional. We have to have a strategy. We have to have a plan, not just for building the business, but we have to have a plan for living a conscious and deliberate life because life is short and time is going so fast. And that's one of the things you definitely will regret looking back is if you're not taking advantage of your time, even with the obstacles that are there now. So even with the corporate structure, even with the terrible boss, like how do we make the most of our time with our family, with our kids, with ourselves within these obstacles? And it's possible. It is just different levels of difficulty depending on those obstacles, but it's worthwhile to put time and energy into living a conscious and deliberate life now even without the new business or even without the entrepreneurial schedule. It's possible.
Yeah, and that just reminds me of something that I learned really early on in becoming an entrepreneur is the whole like be, do, have, right? And for those who aren't familiar with this, we tend to think that only once we have the things in place that we want, then do we do as that person does, and then we'll be that person. When really it's the opposite. We have to think about who we want to be and do those things as if we're already that person. And then we will have the things that we desire. Because if we continue to act as if we're who we are right now and we just continue doing what we do, we're only going to have more of the same. And nothing is going to change in the direction that we want it to. And so that really has stuck with me in helping me be more courageous. Like, okay, what would the version of Michelle do in this situation? Like, if I have the things that I want, what would I be doing? And then I go do those things. I embody those qualities. Like, is it comfortable? No. But you know what? Growing stretches you. And it's one of those things where you look back on, you're like, I'm so glad I made that choice. I'm so glad I had the courage to do that thing because I can't believe I just did that. Like with my example with speaking in front of 200 people on stage. I have stage fright. Like I am not the kind of person who likes to stand in front and have all these people looking at me. Mind you, I'm like talking into a microphone. Like that scared the shit out of me. And I did it.
Yeah.
And like starting a business, no way in hell would I say I would no, I would not believe you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thinking about your future self and who you want to become. And absolutely, we think that making six figures will make us more confident, right? Or we think that starting a business will make us more confident, but we need to find the confidence in order to do those things. Like exactly what you said. It's backwards from how we think it's set up, right? We think all these things will change us, but we have to change ourselves before in order to reach those results. Yes. Absolutely.
Love it. Okay, Jenna, if there's some mamas out there who are like, ooh, okay, I'm getting that nudge. It's time. Where do people connect with you?
The podcast is the best first resource for people. I mean, certainly they can connect with me at jenna.coach. That's my website, JENNA.coach, COACH. But the podcast, How to Quit Your Job, A Mom's Guide to Creating a Life and Business You Love, it has so many great resources. I mean, like I said, from the beginning of figuring out if you actually are ready to quit your job to really laying down the plan and steps to make it happen. Everything from the routine, how to pick an idea if you're multi-passionate, how to start a business if you have no idea what to do, right? How to network as an introvert, right? It's all in there. And episodes are released every week based on things that I'm tackling with my clients and obstacles that I'm seeing coming up. So the podcast is really, I think, the first stop for moms to be hearing something that it's like, I'm a cheerleader in your ear, cheering you on to do it. And then, of course, there's ways that the podcast will open up different ways to get further support, different group coaching. I run a free mom entrepreneurs circle every month where we just come in and talk to other badass moms doing the thing. And so all of that is accessible, and the podcast is the best place to start, I'd say.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Ladies, if you have loved this, please go connect with her. Go check out her podcast. If you know someone that has been talking to you about, I have this idea, send this episode to them. Okay. And if you love this show, I would love it if you would show some support by leaving a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify. That would mean the world to me. That is how this podcast gets to reach more people like you to get the help they need. And Jenna, again, thank you so much for being here. And that's it for this episode. I'll catch you back here on the next one. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.